Hey, everybody. Me and my oldest son were talking the other day, and I forget exactly what we were talking about that led to this, but he was telling me about a couple of fantastic stories. You know, let me continue and it'll make sense. But he was talking about the recent movie. I think it was called Hacksaw Ridge, and how it is a true life story about this man who served in the military and in war, and he was a conscientious objector, but at the same time he wanted to serve. He wanted to serve as a medic, and anyway, the director, I think, or the writers or whatever, they said that the true story of this man was so fantastic, so ridiculous, so horrific and terrifying, and the things that he did, they could not depict this in the movie. They couldn't tell the real story because it was so ridiculous. Nobody would ever believe it. Same thing with the fellow by the name of Audie Murphy during World War II, what he did in order to earn the Congressional Medal of Honor. Same thing. They couldn't tell his real story in the movie because nobody would ever believe it. And I think what I'm trying to get to is what I want to talk about in this particular video, but is that there are stories, or not stories, but there are passages in the scriptures that are so horrifying and so fantastically, how do I put it? My vocabulary is so limited, of course, but there's things that will never be preached from the pulpits of most churches because the words are so terrifying. Not only do people not want to believe them, they just seem so horrific. And this particular passage and this thought that I want to bring across in this video, maybe a few, is found in Luke 13. But if Jesus was to come into your church and start sharing on some of these passages, you know, what would happen? But Luke chapter 13, verse number 22, he says, "And he went through the cities and villages, teaching and journeying toward Jerusalem." So he was going through these villages, teaching something. Then one came up to him and said, "Lord, are there few who are saved?" And he said to them, "Strive to enter through the narrow gate, for many, I say to you, will seek to enter and will not be able. When once the master of the house has risen up and shut the door, and you begin to stand outside and knock at the door, saying, 'Lord, Lord, open for us,' and he will answer and say to you, 'I do not know you, where you are from.' Then you will begin to say, 'We ate and drank in your presence, and you taught in our streets.' But he will say, 'I tell you, I do not know you, where you are from. Depart from me, all you workers of iniquity.'" So, Jesus was passing through from one city and village to another, and he was teaching, and he was headed toward Jerusalem. And then somebody came up to him and said, "Lord, are there just a few who are being saved?" I mean, what was Jesus teaching and preaching about continually in each one of these cities and villages that provoked such a question? The question, are there just a few who are being saved? I mean, I tell you, I don't know about you, but such words, such a question, and such an answer terrifies me. I mean, these words, when I read such, tends to sober me right up. Few are saved versus many. I mean, have you ever asked the question? Are there just a few saved? Has it ever entered your mind? And your wonderings and your ponderings, such a thought. I mean, this guy was basically asking, what's the ratio here? Well, you've been talking about this stuff for the last few days. I've been following you from city to city, from town to town, from village to village, and you've been teaching and preaching what you've been saying. And I just want to know then, how many? Is there just a few that are saved? And, like I was fixing to say, basically this man was asking, what's the ratio? What's the proportion of humanity that will miss the wrath of God and enter the kingdom of God? Because the way he asked this and the way this narrative goes, it looks like Jesus saying it's near impossible for you to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And I mean, right here he says, strive to enter in. You look these words up, he's talking about you got to agonize to get in. And that, I'm telling you, that is not the message that is being preached today. Jesus makes it seem hard. If you want to follow me, he says, you got to deny yourself, take up your cross, and come after me. Any man that don't count the cost, he's not worthy. And you got to, I mean, there's things that he says that makes it sound like why this man asked, are there just a few that are saved? Because I'm telling you, that's not what we're hearing today, for the most part. I mean, this man is asking, what's the proportion of humanity that will miss the wrath of God? Because you're making it sound like they ain't hardly nobody. And then Jesus answers the question. He says, strive to enter through the narrow gate. Because I'm telling you that many are going to seek to enter, but they won't be able to. So what he said. The master of the house is going to get up and he's going to shut the door. And then there's going to be a bunch of them standing outside the door saying, hey, you know us. We heard you preaching. We heard you teaching. We watched you. We was around. We know who you are. And he's going to say, I don't know who you are. I mean, he's asking him, is it the majority of humankind that will be saved, or is it but a remnant? Anyway, just some thoughts. Take everything I'm saying, though, with a grain of salt.